Hello everyone and welcome to the first of many Flashpoint videos. I am currently in the year 2011 thanks to time travel shenanigans at the end of the last video. Here's a photo of Blockbuster as proof, and it turns out that Flashpoint is real, that Barry Allen has messed up the timeline because he went back in time and he saved his mum. And now I'm stuck in the Flashpoint timeline. Luckily, he went around and told everybody about Flashpoint, which is how I know about it. But to make the best of the situation, I decided it would be a good idea to talk about everything going on in the world of Flashpoint in a series that I would like to call The World of Flashpoint. I know, creative name, right? So, without further ado, let's just get straight into this and start talking about these different characters and how their lives have changed due to Flashpoint, starting with Wonder Woman in the miniseries Wonder Woman and the Furies, written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning with art by Scott Clark and David Beatty. The story begins 14 years ago on Themyscira, which is isolated from the rest of the world, but because of the intelligence of its inhabitants, there are going to be people that are curious about it. One of those people is Diana. She is currently messing around with one of her friends, Philippus. They're running together across the beach. She wants to show Philippus something. It is a boat. She plans on venturing out into man's world, and she wants Philippus to tell her mother and everybody else that she's just gone out hunting. So Diana sets out off onto the ocean. She passes a man-made ship, an aeroplane. She's looking at these things. She's like, oh wow, these look amazing. And then a tentacle comes out of the water and grabs her, and she gets attacked by a giant kraken. And she struggles against this kraken until Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman, shows up to save her from the kraken. They fight it together, they cut off its tentacles and stuff, and while they're doing this, he kind of looks at her and is like, oh wow, this woman's pretty fierce. And then they introduce themselves. Diana just draws her sword straight at his face, and he has to explain to her that he's not a regular guy, he's an Atlantean, and that she's been poisoned by that kraken. The kraken was a baby, by the way, so she shouldn't be too mad at it. It did poison her, though, so he's going to take her to Atlantis, where they can cure her. They cure her, and then a month later, she is returned to Themyscira, where Hippolyta is incredibly thankful that they have returned Diana. She also apologizes to the Atlanteans because apparently when they arrived on Themyscira, they were attacked by her sister Penthesilea, who is kind of the villain of this miniseries. Arthur's brother Orm is here, and his young associate Garth, who is usually Aqualad in the main timeline, is here as well, because Arthur is the king of Atlantis already in this timeline, while in the main timeline, it's on and off whether or not he's king. Diana tells her people that not only do the Themyscirans and the Atlanteans both want to go to the outside world, they both have the ambition to teach the outside world to become better people. And they believe that the best way to do that is for the two nations to unite. So they decide that they're gonna get married. Now, the art in this miniseries isn't bad, but I do have one problem with it, and that is the ages of the characters don't really fit with their designs. Hippolyta here looks really young. Like, she looks like she could be in her 20s, and Diana looks the same. They look close in age, even though they wouldn't be. And that's the same with Arthur and Garth. They look very close in age, even though there's probably a decent age gap between them. Arthur's brother Orm looks way older than Arthur does, even though they're probably supposed to be around the same age. Anyway, the two get prepared for marriage. Not everybody is on board. Garth isn't really a fan of this union, neither is Hippolyta's sister. But they're not really worrying about that right now. The ceremony is underway, and we see Garth in his armor. He's just killed a couple of Themysciran soldiers. He's planning on assassinating somebody. We're not really sure who it is yet, but he appears from one of the nearby curtains, and Hippolyta catches him at the corner of her eye. He throws his trident, and she blocks the trident. It looked like he was trying to kill Diana. She blocks it, falls to the ground. Diana is distraught because her mother has just been murdered. They see the culprit get away quickly. The culprit pulls off their helmet and then gets smacked in the face by somebody. And this person that has attacked them is Garth, because it turns out that Garth is being framed right now. It was actually Artemis, one of the Themyscirans, who killed Hippolyta. She was trying to kill Diana and pin it on Garth. The two fight one another, and she beats the shit out of Garth, puts the armor on him, and throws him down on the floor below. So now everybody thinks that he murdered Hippolyta. And before he can even say anything, Penthesilea just grabs a trident, stabs him, and kills him. Doesn't even give him a chance to say anything. And then she turns against all the Atlanteans. It's like, leave this island now, while you still breathe. They take Diana away, they put her to bed, and this is where we see that Penthesilea and Artemis are planning something together. They tried to kill Diana, and it seems like they've teamed up with Orm as well, because Penthesilea says that it's his turn, so it's assumed that Orm also isn't a fan of the marriage, and he's got something planned too. 14 years ago, Diana and Arthur talk about the idea of getting married and uniting their two people in order to teach the world and make it a better place, but the problem with them getting married is that Arthur is apparently in a relationship with Mera at the moment. She runs over, she's like, "Oh, love, it's great to see you." And she's like, "How about we teach our guest how to fight?" And Diana throws her trident straight through one of the dummies. Like, I think I understand the basic principles. And then we skip ahead 13 years later, where Hippolyta has just been killed, and Diana is looking to seek vengeance on Hippolyta against the Atlanteans. Meanwhile, the Atlanteans sail their way to Themyscira because they're a little bit more rational. They just want to talk. Arthur seems like a very rational person, very level-headed person in this series. He does not want a war with Diana. He knows that Garth was framed, and all he wants to do is talk with her and sort all this stuff out. Orm doesn't want to do that. He wants to destroy the Themyscirans, but Arthur's like, no, we're not doing that. And even Mera's on Arthur's side. She doesn't want to attack the Themyscirans either. So they get all of their ships to surround Themyscira just to show that they have a massive fleet, to show Themyscira that it's just not worth starting a war with them. Diana agrees to meet with Arthur, and so Arthur and his soldiers all come in to talk to Diana. He's like, look, we must rebuild trust. There is too much at stake. Together is a strong word. And then without Diana's knowledge, Penthesilea sets off a bomb, which blows up, killing Philippus. And this is obviously to frame the Atlanteans. Diana thinks that Arthur was responsible for this. So she just goes up and attacks him. She's like, you treacherous bastard! Arthur thinks that Orm is responsible for this, but Orm is like, no, we're being attacked too. And the entire island of Themyscira is under attack, being destroyed. Arthur tries to convince Diana that they are being deceived. He is the smartest person in this book, and Diana just kind of acts dumb as shit and doesn't believe him. He's like, deceived? Be gone or die here, my love. Arthur is saved by one of his men, and Diana is taken away from battle, where it is revealed that they have an entire fleet of invisible jets, which is ridiculous. I can't believe this is actually a thing in Flashpoint. Like, normally in the main continuity, there's one invisible jet, but apparently they just make these things. They got a factory for invisible jets. The plan is to set off the volcano that Themyscira is on, completely destroying it, and then they're going to fly over to Man's World and take over it, because now that her mum is dead and her friend is dead, immediately Diana resorts to, oh yeah, I'm just going to invade Man's World. I don't know how she just jumps straight to that, but that's what she does. Bit drastic, if you ask me. You'd think that her only grievance would be with the Atlanteans, not with the humans. Like, what does that have anything to do with this? Arthur and his forces run away as the volcano is set off, and they have to jump off into the ocean, but before they can, the explosion goes off, and Diana thinks that the Atlanteans have all been destroyed. And we get a whole news thing about how the Atlanteans weren't destroyed, they all survived. The Amazonians have attacked Britain and started invading Earth, because originally Britain said no to them coming in peacefully, so now they've just decided to attack. And Diana has also started recruiting metahumans for her cause, and she calls them the Fury. And we see that she has Hawkgirl, Huntress, who isn't a metahuman. But the news guy says superpowered here, and Huntress is not a superpowered character unless she is in the Flashpoint timeline, but they don't really state that. And then I think this is supposed to be Cheetah, it's kind of hard to tell. Meanwhile, Arthur has a weapon of his own called the Geopulse Emitter, and it's powered by King Brion, who in the main continuity is Brion Markov, aka Geoforce, and he is the brother of Tara Markov, aka Terra, and Terra exists in the Flashpoint timeline as well. Tara is recruited into the Furies, Wonder Woman's Furies. So once again, she's kind of just one of the bad guys. It's very hard to find a story where Tara Markov is a hero. They all get attacked by the Atlanteans, they fight back against them, but this was just a ploy by Mera to bring out Diana so that she can attack Diana herself. So Mera and Diana fight each other. Diana says that she doesn't really want to fight Mera because she considers Mera to be one of her friends, like they have been friends for years. I'm like, where did we see that? That one flashback we saw of them, it seemed like Diana hated her. We're just being told they were good friends, but we don't actually get to see them being good friends. Diana decides to end the fight very quickly. She jumps up to Mera with her sword, cuts her head off. Just, body goes boom onto the ground, head goes flying, and then she puts on Mera's helmet and decides to wear it from now on. She's like, yeah, I'm taking that girl's helmet, and I'm gonna wear it, and I'm gonna kill her husband as well, because Mera and Arthur were married before Diana killed her. She sends the body to Arthur, and now things are personal. Arthur is like, that's it. Deploy the Geopulse device on them, sink them, kill them all. Arthur's side definitely feels like the more understandable side in this situation. It's more understandable that he would be so mad because his wife was killed innocently. Everybody related to Aquaman that has died at the hands of the Themyscirans, it's all been innocent. Anybody that was killed, like all of the Themyscirans that were killed, it was innocent, but also a part of the trick, and yet Diana wasn't smart enough to realize it was a trick, like Arthur. Which is really just unfortunate writing for Diana. It's unfortunate that she was written to be this way for this Flashpoint timeline to work, because the mainline Diana would not be this stupid. So the geo-sensor weapon is set off, and different parts of Europe begin crumbling in front of the eyes of the Themyscirans. Terra can feel her brother's pain. She can sense that the Atlanteans are using him as a weapon because they have a connection telepathically or something, so she feels his pain, and she decides to use as much of her power as she can to save the Atlanteans from the coming floods. So she uses her powers to raise the part of England that they are on, which is where Buckingham Palace is, raise it up into the skies, transforming it into a giant mountainous island that will now be known as New Themyscira. And Terra even says that. She's like, welcome to New Themyscira, as she passes out. So now the Themyscirans have opened up their base on New Themyscira, and Penthesilea overhears Mera's sister Siren talking to Orm. Siren is talking about how she can just kill Terra right now if she wants to. And Siren tries to fight Penthesilea, but immediately Penthesilea just stabs her in the chest with a spear and kills Siren immediately. And so Terra comes running into where Diana is, saying that they've got a security breach. So Diana decides to go and find her aunt. And when she gets there, Penthesilea and Orm are making out in front of Siren's corpse. Like, who does that? Who stabs somebody and kills them and then makes out with someone right after? And so now Diana realizes that Penthesilea is a traitor and that she's been conspiring against Diana this entire time with Orm. Basically, the whole thing is that Penthesilea and Orm met each other back when the Atlanteans brought Diana to Themyscira, and they fell in love with one another because they realized they had the same ambition, which was to take over the human world using force, drawing blood, which is the opposite of what Diana and Arthur wanted to do. So they looked down on them. They were like, oh, they want to lead Earth with love? Nah, we want to lead with death. And Penthesilea is like, yeah, I killed all the weak people on our side because we needed to show our commitment to the cause. And Diana's like, was my mother a sacrifice? And then Vixen shows up. She's one of the Furies, and she notifies Diana that there is a resistance currently being led by Lois Lane against the Atlanteans and the Themyscirans, and also that Arthur is currently taking part in this battle, so Diana has to go and deal with that. So she says, I'm going to go deal with Arthur, but I will come back and deal with you, my traitorous aunt. So she runs off, and Orm and Penthesilea reminisce about their time falling in love with one another. They also fight against the rest of the Themyscirians in the room with them, and they kill all of them. They don't kill Terra. Terra just kind of dies because Brion is feeling so much pain from being used as a weapon that Terra just kind of has a seizure, falls to the ground, and dies. I'm assuming she's dead here because they're like, yeah, we don't need to worry about her. She's out. Like, she's gone. So they decide to watch Arthur and Diana kill each other and talk about how they're just going to take over the world once the battle is over. They're also going to help give the end of the battle a bit of a quick jump start. And so while Arthur and Diana are fighting, and Arthur is like, I loved you, I can't believe you killed my wife. And Diana is like, you never really did. And that's the real tragedy, Arthur. You actually believe in love. Wait, what is that? And then they turn and they see all this lightning just crackling around them, which is probably because of Siren and Orm, that they have something to do with this maybe. But that's where this miniseries ends. A bit anticlimactic because it ties directly into the main story, but oh well. I guess we're just moving on to the next miniseries that we're covering this week, Lois Lane and the Resistance. Also written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, with art by Eddie Nunez and Don Ho. Abnett and Lanning write a few of these miniseries, I'm pretty sure. The story begins in France with Lois Lane attending a fashion party. Aquaman has already started attacking Europe with the geosensor ray. Jimmy is here as well, and so far, when it comes to Flashpoint, Lois is the closest to the original version that we've seen. You might think the same about Jimmy when you see him here, but we will learn later that his life is very different compared to his regular life. But Lois is basically just a reporter for the Daily Planet, as always, for Perry White. Perry is another character whose life hasn't really changed much. The only difference is that there is no Superman, so she's never met Clark Kent or anything like that. But she's annoyed at Perry because she wants to do more than just fashion parties. She wants to do investigations in regards to the war that's currently going on in the world. So as Lois and Jimmy are wandering the streets of France, an earthquake suddenly happens. The windows around them begin shattering. They're like, oh god, we gotta run. And Perry is telling them to get to safety, and they see that there's a bunch of children and women in trouble, and Jimmy immediately is helping them. And that is when a massive tidal wave comes crashing through France. So they're running away from this tidal wave like, ah! They make it to a church, and as they get into it, the tidal wave crashes through the church. Jimmy turns around, sees a guy that needs help. He's like, you take this baby, I'm gonna help this guy, like, take my camera as well. And as he goes down to help the guy, the water comes in, kills this guy and Jimmy. That's right, Jimmy Olsen is dead within a few pages of this book. This city in France has been completely flooded, and everyone's starting to run out of water and cell reception, stuff like that, and that is when the Themyscirans arrive, offering their help to take everybody to safety, but they're like, nah, the priest is not allowed to come, because he worships a different god. He worships a false god. And the priest is like, it's okay, you can leave, I will be fine. The Themyscirans bring Lois and the other people to New Themyscira, and when they get there, Lois discovers that the men and women are separated. The men are treated like prisoners. We see that they even have prison jumpsuits, while the women are just taken and get to live normal lives. They're going to be put into regular accommodation soon. They just need testing and stuff like that. So while Lois is here, she decides to check Jimmy's camera. There's no way they're going to get a hold of Jimmy's last photos. But the camera transforms into a little holographic display, and we see Cyborg on the display. And it turns out that Jimmy was a secret operative working for Cyborg and was investigating the Themyscirans in the war. And Lois wants to become his new operative, because she's like, oh, Jimmy's dead, so can I work for you and do his work, continue his work? Because it's the least I can do. So Cyborg tells her to stay at the camp and send him reports on what the Themyscirans are doing with the women that are there. And the camera turns into a little bracelet that Lois puts on her hand. Apparently this bracelet can do pretty much anything that she wants. And so she starts sending reports through to Cyborg about what the Themyscirans are doing. They are training the women and altering their DNA to turn them into Amazonian warriors. And Lois is here for a very long time. 32 weeks, in fact. And she's next on the list for conversion, so now or never is the time for her to get away. So she tries to escape from the Themyscirans. They all chase after her. She's surrounded, but is saved by a woman who attacks the Themyscirans, beats the shit out of them. She's British as well. She was created specifically for this book. She is not somebody from the main timeline. Her name is Penny Black, and she's going to help Lois. They're going to team up together. That is when an arrow comes flying, hitting Penny in the shoulder. She's fine though, she's not dead. But Artemis is here alongside Hawkgirl, and they are going to kill Lois and Penny because nobody escapes Artemis. And now we meet the rest of Penny Black's resistant, consisting of Godiva, the Canterbury Cricket, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a guy in a cricket costume. Etrigan the Demon, a woman who can turn into the beast Hyde, and Grifter from the Wildcats, because this was the first time that DC was taking Wildstorm stuff and making it a part of their main DC universe. So they are fighting against the Furies. We get to see the Demon fight Cheetah. We see Hyde's transformation as he fights against the Furies as well. Canterbury Cricket is shooting sound waves from his mouth. Apparently that's a thing that he can do. Hawkgirl throws a whip at Grifter and he drops his gun on the ground, and Vixen picks it up and she gets ready to shoot Grifter in the face, but Godiva saves him by grabbing Vixen and throwing her into a wall. Grifter then grabs Hawkgirl's whip, pulls her to the ground, and stabs her in the stomach with his sword, killing her. So Hawkgirl is now dead. And then Hyde blocks up the tunnel to stop the rest of the Furies from finding them, and they decide to continue making their way through the tunnels. They are currently looking for Penny Black, and while they are looking for Penny Black, they come across Lois Lane, because even though the last issue ended with Penny Black and Lois Lane together, face to face with Artemis, we don't actually really get to see that happen properly. Lois Lane explains what happens in a flashback where Penny apparently fought Artemis using smoke grenades. It would have been really cool to actually see that happen, but all we get is this one panel of flashbacks. And while Lois teams up with the Resistance and walks through the tunnels with them, Grifter explains his backstory to her. So he used to be a member of a team called Team 7, and they went into wars together, and during one of the wars that they were in, a massive bomb was set off which killed all of them except for Grifter. He was the lone survivor, and before he could get killed by his enemies, they were all gunned down by Penny Black in this suit of armor, which was called the Britannia armor, that made her practically indestructible. So she came in, she saved Grifter, took him to safety, he recuperated, and then he ended up searching for Penny Black, and that's how he found himself in Britain, which had been taken over by the Themyscirans. He then met Etrigan the Demon, Godiva, all those characters. They came together, they created the Resistance, they reunited with Penny Black, and Penny told them that there is a prototype of the Britannia suit that is apparently really powerful, and they need to find it, and if they find it, then she can use it to fight against the Themyscirans. So that is their plan. Find the Britannia armor. In the present day, the Resistance reunites with Penny. Penny has this technopathy ability, and so does Grifter. He has technopathy as well, so they have like a mental link because of that, and that's why they've fallen in love with each other. Her technopathy senses the technology in Lois's bracelet. She senses that it is Cyborg's technology, and she wants to use it in order to find the Britannia armor. So she uses it, she figures out where the Britannia armor is, so they make their way to the location. When they get there, Etrigan suddenly gets depowered by one of Artemis's arrows, because it turns out this was a trap. The Themyscirans knew that they were there because Hyde has betrayed everybody. Because the woman that is Hyde, her name is Bobby Stevenson, and she hates being Hyde, and the Themyscirans promised her a cure if she helped them. And so she draws a knife to Lois's throat. It's like, now do as they say and surrender, or I slit Lane's throat. We now learn about Penny Black's origin. She was a technician for a ship known as the Lionheart. It was practicing with its weapons, testing some kind of weapon, and then the ship just disappeared. And while it was disappearing, Penny felt all this pain. It suddenly teleported inland. Apparently everybody on the ship except for Penny were completely disintegrated. They noticed that the power of the weapon that disintegrated everybody has altered Penny's body, giving her her technopathy abilities. So they created the Britannia armor for her, and she became Britannia. And now the Resistance are at the mercy of the Themyscirans because one of their own has turned against them. And that is when Hyde emerges, because he doesn't want his friends to be killed. So he forces Bobby to transform into Hyde and fights against the Themyscirans. Lois is able to free Canterbury Cricket, and so he is able to fight against the Themyscirans as well. And Bobby is trying to turn back to normal, but she can't control Hyde. And that is when the Resistance all stand in front of Artemis, and they're like, hey Artemis, Resistance, hit him hard! Meanwhile, Lois and Penny make their escape deeper into the base where the Britannia armor is said to be, because Penny can sense it there. She gets to the door where she thinks it is, and then gets hit in the back by an arrow from Artemis, who shows up. Lois fights against Artemis using a gun that she finds in a box that just happens to be right there. Very lucky that there was a gun in there that was loaded with bullets. Meanwhile, Penny's real messed up right now. She's bleeding from her mouth, from her arm, from her chest. But the Britannia armor is right there. She's so close to getting it. Artemis is about to kill Lois, and Penny just comes plowing through her in the Britannia armor. She just plows Artemis in half. It is disgusting. It's just like, poof! Something that you'd see out of something like The Boys. So Artemis is dead. Britannia decides to go and reunite with the Resistance, but Lois has plans of her own. As Britannia leaves, she is attacked by Wonder Woman, and the two of them fight each other across the city, where Britannia steers their fight towards a prison. They smash straight through it, and Wonder Woman is like, what the hell is this? And Britannia is like, you should know what this is. This is the shipment prison that you created. It's all in your name. She's like, I have no idea what any of this is. And this is her discovering that her aunt has been doing horrible things in her name, which we saw the continuation of that in the Wonder Woman miniseries. Meanwhile, Lois Lane hooks up to London's computer systems or something and sends out a broadcast to the entirety of London telling them everything that's going on. Showing the Themyscirians' hand, telling them that they have been experimenting on people and turning them into Amazonians for their army, and that the Resistance is here to save everybody, and that Lois just wants to let everybody know that the Resistance is going to help them, and that the Themyscirians are zoning in on her location, and that this will be the last time she can talk to them. And then Lois is shot and killed off panel. That's right, Lois Lane dies. It's actually quite sad. She revealed everything and then died. Britannia reunites with the rest of the Resistance, and she has even more numbers for the Resistance. All of the prisoners have joined them, and now they are free to fight against the Themyscirians together for the last time. And that's the end of this miniseries. Overall, I think I enjoyed this one more than the Wonder Woman one, because it's cool to see all these characters, these alternate versions of them in a resistance group together fighting against the Themyscirians. The downside to this miniseries was that it tried to add 2 flashbacks into a 3-issue miniseries, which is not a good idea. It just takes up page state and gives you less breathing room for the actual story, so towards the end the story started to feel a bit rushed. But now we move on to the final miniseries that we will be covering today, Project Superman, written by Scott Snyder with art by Lowell Francis and Gene Ha. This is the first book I'm covering on the channel written by Scott Snyder. I also think this is the first time he ever writes Superman. It's not the first time he's written for DC, but this is his first Superman book. It's funny that it's an alternate timeline. I'm really interested to see what goes on in this book, because I know what Superman is like in the Flashpoint timeline, and I'm curious to see what his origins are and stuff like that. The story begins 30 years ago, where we are introduced to a soldier known as Neil Sinclair, who has signed up for a program to transform him into a metahuman to work for the army, specifically General Sam Lane, the father of Lois Lane. So he introduces Neil to the experiment, and immediately they decide to do it on him. They're like, we've been preparing you for this for a while now. We're going ahead with the experiment right now. We're going to turn you into a metahuman. So they shoot him with all of this energy, and then 2 years later, we see that Neil is much more jacked now. He's started gaining superpowers. He has the ability to heal rapidly, when a month ago it would take him a lot longer to heal. One thing that's notable in this is Neil's speech bubbles. At first they start off looking normal, then in these pages the letters in the speech bubbles are red. Neil's appearance also begins to change as the book goes on. He starts to become more and more anime looking, as you can see in this panel. He has anime hair as he's learning his new abilities. One of these new abilities is X-ray vision. He can actually see through things, and he starts listening in on people's conversations because he has super hearing as well. And he learns that a couple of people have doubts about Neil, but they're willing to give him a shot. They're not ready to shut down the experiment yet, but they're sensing that maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe Neil isn't the right person for this kind of thing. Maybe they can't trust him. General Lane goes and has a conversation with Neil, where Neil is like, when am I gonna be sent out on an actual job? I've been doing tests this entire time. I've been fighting every killing machine that you've sent at me. I've taken them all out perfectly. What more could you possibly need? Like, what is it you're not sure of? Nothing. And then General Lane is told that his wife has gone into labor, so Lois Lane is about to be born. And Neil takes note of this, that General Lane has other attachments that are taking him away from his job. 1 year later, Neil is sent out on his first operation alongside a bunch of soldiers, and other metahumans. When he gets there, he immediately starts getting the work, and we see now that his speech bubbles are dark red with black borderlines to show that he's progressed badly as a person, I would assume. His voice is all fucked up now. He starts attacking soldiers, killing these guys with his bare hands. He's just like, whoa, 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 killing all these people. And then he starts killing his own teammates. These are his allies, and he just kills them, and then he walks up to this dude who is the guy that they're supposed to be protecting, and he kills him too. And General Lane is like, what the hell did you do? You killed your support team. Wait, I need to center myself. Stand down, soldier. No. And so they lock him away, and now everybody's having second guesses. But what they don't know is that Neil can see them and hear them. But they're like, we gotta figure out what to do with Neil. But we gotta do it discreetly, because otherwise they're gonna send one of the other generals that was against this here, and we're gonna be in a lot of trouble. Neil wants to show General Lane that the best thing to do is to separate yourself from all attachments, and that is when the perfect opportunity arrives for him. As meteorites begin flying out down into Metropolis, toppling the Daily Planet, which apparently existed even now and looked exactly the same. The streets were on fire, and this isn't just any meteor storm, it's the one that Kal-El came in. So we see Kal-El's ship arrive on Earth. After all, timing is everything. So it seems like Kal-El has something to do with Neil's future plans for General Lane. And we'll see how that plays out. While locked away, Neil Sinclair watches as the government finds Kal-El, and his goal is to save the world by destroying all evil, and he believes that Kal-El will be able to help him. But for now, he's just going to watch him and subtly influence him with his powers. He's able to use his voice to speak quietly enough that only Kal-El can hear him. The interesting thing about this is that General Lane is very sympathetic towards Kal-El. It's partly to do with the fact that he had 2 daughters and he's always wanted a son, and from what I can understand, his wife and him have split up and she took the daughters, but occasionally Lois comes and visits him. But because he wants a son, he often treats Kal like his son. And he actually found out Kal's name from some roughly translated text that was found on his alien ship. And the doctors that are around him are like, you gotta stop treating this boy like he's a human. He's an alien. He's an experiment. I can't believe you even gave him her name. And it's hinted that Neil is a little jealous of Kal because he has a name, while Neil never had a name for a long time. He's always been known as Subject Zero. We see that Crypto exists in this timeline. He must have arrived with Kal because we see them together in his cell. He spends time with the dog, but they tell Sam Lane to take the dog away from him because maybe it will push Kal to actually take part in their experiments, because right now Kal is not taking part. And so Sam brings him to his office and explains to him that he's going to take the dog away from him, but if Kal does his experiments, he can not only play with Crypto, but he'll also play baseball with him, because Kal likes baseball. The last time they played it together, he really enjoyed it. Sam has to leave, and there's a moment where Kal sees a picture of a young Sam holding the baseball. He kind of puts his hand up to the baseball. It seems to be him kind of longing for a father-like relationship. It's very sweet. And then we meet Lionel Luthor and Lex Luthor for the first time. Lionel was mentioned earlier. He was the one that set up the whole operation that we saw with Subject Zero in the last issue. He's very clearly based on the version from Smallville and not the alcoholic version from the main comics. Lex Luthor is basically just young Lex Luthor, as you would imagine. We have Crypto here, and they're trying to keep him in his cell, but Neil uses his abilities to rile up Crypto, and so Crypto goes crazy. He smashes out of his cell, rips this guy's arm off Lionel tells his son to stand still, and then he pushes Lex in front of Crypto and lets his son get mauled to death by Crypto while he makes his mistake. I'm not actually sure if Lex dies from this, but as far as I know, he's dead. Maybe the next issue will reveal that he was hospitalized or something, but like, it looks like he gets his arm ripped off, and it's messed up. And Crypto just continues mauling and killing people until somebody finally puts him down, and Cal is distraught at this. He's just like, no! Because he's just seen his dog get shot. It's not even his dog's fault. We see Lois Lane as a young girl arrive at her father's office. She keeps getting into the facility, even though she's not supposed to. She's brought a little gift for him because it's his birthday. Meanwhile, Cal sneaks out of his cell and sneaks through the facility, and he breaks open a door and he finds Neil killing a bunch of soldiers. And then Neil reaches out to Cal's hand and they walk off together. So Cal clearly trusts Neil, even though Neil is a horrible monster and a terrible role model. Neil walks into the area where the doctors are that experimented on them, and it's revealed that the main doctor is a Medusa-looking dude. He's got snakes coming out of his head, and there's all these alien things that come out of these machines. He lets them all out, and so Neil starts killing them all while Cal runs away. He's like, I let Cal run away, but I will eventually bring him back to my path. Sam is called to go and deal with Subject Zero, so Lois Lane stays behind in his office, finds one of his top secret documents, and as she's about to leave, Cal zooms into the room, and this is the first time that Cal and Lois meet one another. And you can already see that there is a bond between them. Neil then breaks into the room and he tells Cal to step aside because he wants to kill Lois Lane because he wants to show Sam Lane that attachments equal weakness. But Cal refuses to move. And so Neil prepares to kill both of them. But then Sam comes in wearing this high-tech gear that he can use to fight Neil. Neil goes to grab him and kill him, but Sam activates the gear, revealing that it's actually the Phantom Zone projector. And so he transports himself and Neil into the Phantom Zone, leaving Cal and Lois distraught. And then General Nathaniel Atom arrives in the main timeline. He is Captain Atom, but in this timeline it seems he never got his abilities and he never got sent to another zone. So he's much older than his main counterpart and he's just a regular guy. And he locks Cal away in a cell and says that he's going to have to take part in their experiments, and if he says that he's ready to help them in their missions, they might consider letting him join them, or they might not. And as he leaves, Cal uses his heat vision to draw Lois Lane in his cell. 20 years passed, Cal has been freed from his containment by the heroes of the Flashpoint timeline, and has grown to become Superman, or rather Super Twink. He makes his way over to New Themyscira. Meanwhile, Subject Zero and General Lane escape from the Phantom Zone, and Subject Zero plans on going and finding Cal and destroying him. And it's really sad because he kills Sam Lane. Breaks his neck off panel. You hear the crunch. It's like he crushed him. Ugh, it's really sad. Cal sees the destruction caused by the Themyscirans and the Atlanteans, and it just makes him sad as he just sees it all flying around. Meanwhile, Subject Zero finds the corpse of Doomsday, which we'll get into Doomsday in a different video. Doomsday's dead, and Subject Zero steals the energy from Doomsday because apparently his DNA was made with Doomsday's DNA. So he's able to absorb the energy and it makes him stronger, so he kills all of the soldiers that are looking for him. A surprise twist that I didn't see coming is that Lois Lane actually survived the events of the Resistance miniseries. The explosion we see didn't kill her. The explosion was actually Cal. He breaks into where she is, saving her from the Themyscirans, and the two reunite with one another, and his plan is to get her to safety. Cal believes that Lois is not fit for this situation. Like, it's just too dangerous. She could die. and he doesn't want her to die, especially because Sam Lane has already died. But that is when Subject-Zero arrives. He smashes straight into the two of them, knocking out Cal for a brief moment. Lois tries to shoot at him for some reason. It's kind of dumb. She draws out a gun and shoots at him, and it's like, bro, bullets aren't going to work on this guy. He picks her up, he goes to kill her, but Cal comes in and smashes him with a car, and the two get into a big fight. He grabs Cal by the leg, he throws him into a Ferris wheel. Cal comes flying back, punches him, but then Subject-Zero grabs him by the head and smashes him into the ground. And then he sees these Themyscirans and he's like, let me show Cal what true power is. So he kills all these Themyscirans while Lois runs over to Cal to see if he's okay. She helps him up, and as Subject-Zero is killing Themyscirans, Cal just chucks a massive pole or something on top of him, but then Subject-Zero grabs a train from underground and throws it at Cal, and then he picks it up and he smashes it on top of him, and he tells Cal that he needs to let go of his attachments and stop struggling, otherwise he will continue to suffer. And Cal is like, I'm ready to suffer. He grabs Subject-Zero's hand, and Subject-Zero's like, let go! Subject-Zero starts using his energy against Cal, but then Cal reveals to Subject-Zero that his energy is leaking, and that is why he's having a hard time controlling his powers. Lois Lane finds a laser gun somehow. She just has it, and she shoots the energy at Cal, and he channels it through his body and shoots it directly. He punches directly through Subject-Zero's chest, killing him. But then Lois collapses, because it turns out she was still badly wounded from the explosion earlier, and also Subject-Zero picking her up has bruised her organs and stuff, so unfortunately she's dying. Like, Cal, you have to go help, have to save these people, not because of me, but because it's the right thing to do. Lois? And it does the Crisis on Infinite Earths pose where he's holding Lois Lane. It's a famous Superman pose, and here we get to see it again. My name is Cal. Today I must be a Superman. And we will see Cal again when eventually we cover the main Flashpoint series. But for now, that is the end of this video, and next week we are going to be covering more of these Flashpoint miniseries. These three I enjoyed quite a lot. I'm glad that the three series were all directly related to one another. They didn't feel disjointed at all. In fact, Project Superman continues perfectly onward from the Resistance, which I was not expecting. I'm glad I read the Resistance one before I read this, because otherwise the story would have felt disjointed. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week for more World of Flashpoint. Have a good one.